Sorry, yeah, we're recording again. So the notes will be up on the screen and it'll help everybody to follow. I also had a link to the notes in the chat session here. So I also put a link to, because it was Colin that gave me that, what you call the Rainbow Bible. I put that link in the chat as well. People want to follow there. So
yes, I gave you these notes the other day. I think you already got these notes, right?
Sorry. Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, okay.
Psalm 139, but you got to scroll to page 10. That's where they start. And then when people are following along at home, he starts this teaching off in verse 6 and goes to verse 4 and then works his way up to 6. So, and then it'll be helpful when I have the card set up on the screen to follow along, because it is kind of confusing as to what you're saying. But now I get it. So. I get what you're doing.
It's a secret mystery, man. It was for thousands of years.
I find it interesting because I have the what I use, Bible Gateway, and I can, just with the click of a mouse, I can look up just about 50 translations all at once, and they all say the same thing in verse 6. Such knowledge is beyond my grasp. It is so high I cannot reach it. That can't be an accident that's there that way. Like it was hidden. It's been hidden.
Right.
So
does any of the rest of you have anything you want to throw in here to the conversation before we go on to verse 8?
Hi, Eric.
Hey, Pete.
Hello. Hey, I just found a little thing here, and you were talking about the King James, and just take a second here to read this little deal. I've always held on to it because I know they're ran into some kind of rabid King James people once in a while.
Yeah.
And this little description, I don't know where I had it. I just saved it because I always thought it was so good. And it says the King James version of the New Testament. The King James version of the New Testament was completed in 1611 by 8 members of the Church of England. There were and still are no original texts to translate. The oldest manuscripts we have were written down hundreds of years after the last apostle died. There are over 8,000 of these old manuscripts with no two alike. The King James translators used none of these anyway. Instead, they edited previous translations to create a version their king and parliament would approve. So 21st century Christians believe the quote word of God unquote is a book edited in a 17th century from the 16th century translations of 8,000 contradictory copies of 4th century scrolls that claim to be copies of lost letters written in the 1st century. That's not faith, that's insanity.
But it's the best we've had, man.
Yeah. So that's my 2 cents.
I appreciate you reading that. I also heard the ISR, Institute of Scripture Research Bible out of South Africa, at one time had a little statement in their foreword that said, I believe it was them that said there was over 30,000 Greek documents, manuscripts, by which the New Testament, or maybe even the whole Septuagint, whatever, was composed and put together. No two match. No two are exactly word for word, letter for letter of 30,000 Greek documents. So which one, this is my which one was the authorized Greek that became the authorized King James? And as you just read, it's like none of them. It was all compiled to fit the mind of Parliament and the Church of England, who was just renegade Catholic. I get to be the boss instead of you, the king to the Pope, King Henry.
Yes, and the fact that what you have stumbled on, and I'm sure other people, but not stumbled on, I know you're my buddy and you're my brilliant buddy. But this just fits, and what are the verses that say it? Things Deuteronomy and other places that in the last days the people shall return to the ancient path. Well, that kind of nails it for me. I mean, this is exciting. This is what I want to know, and I know my English is is just a business language of the world, and Father had something else for us to see, and now he's bringing us back, and he's using you to facilitate it, and that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Somebody else has their hand up. Is that Randall? Is that you?
Yeah, that's me. Well, he gave his 2 cents, so I'll give mine 5 cents. What I've noticed learning in all the years is that man has tinkered with the Bible to present a certain agenda. I think, you look at a lot of people like you were saying, think the King James is the end all and it's the most perfect. Well, the Catholic Church had their hand in it. So there are things that I've noticed that it pushes a certain agenda that they're trying to press. I mean, you were making a comment earlier about that they didn't want anybody reading the Bible for themselves. Probably because if anybody read it for themselves, they might actually learn that what they were being taught did not line up with what they were reading. So I think what we're dealing with now is and what you're doing is going back to the original language and seeing what it actually says and not what the translators have said. And I was also, you throughout your teaching here, I've had all this stuff going through my head, and I think we can agree is that our vocabulary has grown over the years. So you mentioned, I think it was in verse 3, you mentioned the word scientist. Now, did the word scientist actually exist when that was written? And if it didn't exist, what word would that have been? What was their equivalent for what we call a scientist? Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, I'm just saying that the word scientist is not there, but the word knowledge is there. Dalet ayin tov, and I can look in the Red Dictionary and see if I write Dalet ayin noon, that's the word scientist, because the noon suffix is one engaged in the action of doing it. So one engaged in the action of messing with knowledge. Well, that's by definition a scientist. And in fact, even the word science, SCI, comes from, I think it's a Latin root, to know. So it goes back to the same root. So what I'm saying is the interesting thing about this chapter is that it seems to be saying, hey, listen, regardless of what language you look at, you can break apart the words and realize they're all woven together. And Yahuwah has ordained, has invented, has fit human mind and speech and thinking to all be about language, all be about words, and words and language is where it's at. And the people who appreciate language, maybe we stick them in their own group. Maybe other people appreciate sports and other people appreciate fish or outer space, or pick your favorite subject, music. But words are this, you might say, that apparently like this supreme human endeavor is searching words. And I never knew that. I was never told or given an appreciation. In fact, I was talking to my brother a few weeks ago, and I said, the reason why you haven't studied Hebrew, and he went to Bible college and got ordained as a minister. And it's like, but he doesn't know Hebrew. He hasn't even looked at Hebrew as far as I know. And you know why? Because nobody told him that it was beautiful, that it was wonderful, that it was spectacular, that it was a significant, if not the most significant thing that the Creator ever built, beyond even microscopically looking at the components that make up the universe. Speech and the beauty of the components, microscopically looking at the letters. Nobody ever gave any of us that appreciation. I was never given it. So this video series we're doing is trying to hand it as a banquet, a feast, a beautiful symphony that other people can just hear and go, wow, I never knew. We're just trying to relay the appreciation of the Hebrew Shafah, the Shafah Kadesh, the sacred tongue, as if it was Yahweh's own face. And I say that because the word Pene, we're going to get into that in some other letters and other words, but it's like, once you start breaking down the spelling of words, it's all there. It's all there, and it opens up like a blossom. It's incredible. We were never told, never offered it.
And again, being the somewhat conspiracy theorist, I think maybe that was on purpose.
Yahweh hid it by using any other agents. He could have used, just make a correction. I believe the Catholics have their own version of the Bible. They don't use King James, from what I understand. King James was written by Protestants, Church of England, as an antithesis, as a counter to the Catholics. But that's, whatever. The point is, in fact, even the Spanish have their own Bible that I know somebody that reads both English and Spanish, and they said it's different. It's not gonna, Spanish Catholic Bible is going to have different things than Spanish English Bible. So how do you know? Got to go back to Hebrew. Anyway, did anybody else have anything you wanted to throw in? Anybody else that's on the call?
Hey, Eric, what was that verse that you were just going over that you went through a word that was describing frayed, like jeans, the bottom of jeans and being like the garment and everything?
Yes, that's the word for, it's simply the word mem lamed hey. It's verse 4, and it says without mem lamed hey, but the word mem lamed means speech or word. And so what you do is you have to realize that mem lamed hey is a derivative of mem lamed lamed. And you could even say a melee, M-E-L-E-E, which is, I think, a French word that English uses, is to say just like this big brawl where everything's just ragged and thrown around, nothing in order. It's not like it's like a war or a battle where you're not, composed of two lines, attacking each other like a scrimmage, but it's just this big free-for-all. So when you see a picture of frayed, tattered clothing, because it's been rubbing on the ground, or a rope that you forgot to tie on the back of your truck and it's been dragging down the freeway and getting battered, done that a few times. That's the same picture.
I was thinking about that when you were talking about that verse. I was thinking about that movie, My Fair Lady, being like a little bit in the description of that verse where her language, her speech is so off, and he's trying
it be loverly, right?
Yes, and he's trying to train her, domesticate her, refine her language, her speaking, and that's
Pygmalion is the other name of that, right? Yep.
Yes, and you know how that came about, right? That whole thing.
How so?
Well, how he came to take her in as a trainee and teach
her. It was a bet.
That's right. It was a bet.
The guy said, look at this street urchin lady, this lady selling flowers, her speech is so decrepit and so decayed, frayed, rubbed and scraped. There's no salvaging her and bringing her to an upper class of distinction, which language drives. And the other guy, who was a professor of linguistics, he said, okay, I'll take that bet, And so he corrected her speech and passed her off at some polo event or something where all the big shots gathered. It passed her off as some prima donna,
Yes, that was funny. That's what I was.
My parents really liked that movie.
Yeah.
Or in fact, it was put on by school plays and all. Yeah, good point. Language changes everything, because language then, especially this Hebrew language. See, this is, I believe, Hebrew, just so you know, I believe Hebrew is Yahuwah's his own personal, not syntax, jargon, colloquial. It's his favorite. It's the closest. It's the clearest, cleanest expression of his heart and his mind. And so people say, oh, he knows my heart. He invented all the languages. The word babble means to scramble with confusion, permutations, morph, change, less than pure. And though he knows every language, this is us conforming to his ideal, pure, resonant, in sync. And only when we have his same words with his same meanings are we going to understand his mind and heart, which the language carries. That's what makes this significant to do this study. And any conflicts in the past, again, that book that Colin shared, Rulers of Evil, described that the Protestant versus Catholic argument over the centuries was basically all arguing over other language translations anyway. It's not even this one. And for the Jews to say, hey, this is our language, leave it alone. I've said before that I saw a video that the head or the chief rabbi of London was saying it's the language, it's the Hebrew language, which is the common bond between all Jews across the face of the earth, because the Jews are the only ones that hold to and appreciate and treasure and value as kadosh the Hebrew language, but they use the modern letters. And so there's something, that's why, they wear the hat and say, hey, there's another writing of Kadosh Yahweh, just like back here. It's Paleo-Hebrew, man. The Jews don't need to be offended. We'll just call it Ephraim's phylactery. This is the lost 10 tribes coming back to the reality. And if anybody doesn't like it, it's like, hey, go ahead and favor your own language, whether it's modern Hebrew or English or King James, go ahead. Just love what you love. We just are going back to appreciate, and I'll get into some other words here as we progress through this chapter, to, gosh, when you see what's in here, man, it's just incredible. Anyway, does anybody else want to say anything, or should I progress?
Oh, no, I just think it's important to remember that I don't think there's any conspiracy theory. I don't think this is the curse. I think it was either Gillen or Sally that brought it up last week. Proverbs 25:2. It's the glory of Elohim to hide things, it's the glory of kings to investigate them. This is what we're doing. But we had this curse on till 2010. So now all of a sudden we're allowed to uncover these things. I think So
right. So
nobody did this on purpose. Yehuda did it.
Well, even if they did do it on purpose, but you can't blame the devil. You can't blame the Catholics. You can't blame King James or King Henry. You can't blame it's just what it is. Here we are. Yahweh did it on purpose. He hid it till now on purpose. So here we are.
Randall has his hand raised.
Yes, Randall.
Okay. Did you say one of the words that you had read was melee?
I'm saying that the word spelled mem lamed hey sounds like the English word, which I think is French or Latin, which is melee, M-E-L-E-E, which you can see the picture as being synonymous with the description.
Okay. Because my understanding of the word melee, and I've learned this from video games and what have you, is a response to an attack.
Well, I could say that a melee is a battle which is engaged as a response to attack, but a melee, in my understanding, is just a big, like a gang fight, street fight, free for all, non-orchestrated.
But it's your response to somebody coming at you, or somebody trying to attack you. Then you have a melee attack, which is a response to being attacked.
Well, that would sure be appropriate. And let me just say, my understanding of English words is not perfect. It's just my understanding. And I know other people that have other understandings of English words that it's like, boy, what would make you think of that? Like this, I would never have thought that melee was just a response to an attack. And so words change over the years, and different people learn different things. So, it's all that. But like I said, this verse that we're looking at is that no language is, there you go. The Catholic Bible is called the D-O-U-A-Y, the Dewey. Yeah, I've heard about that before. It's a different translation than King Jimmy. But I'm just saying this verse is saying that Yahuwah has invented the concept of words. And I remember hearing a man say, some preacher years ago, that humans by design are speaking spirits trapped in a body, male and female, but we're speaking spirits. Speaking, that means we're geared for language, mind of processing, hand, eye, reading letters, voice, linguistics. Humans are all about linguistics. That's our primary thing. It's just interesting to know that, because you're never taught that otherwise, really. I mean, you have to bump into that knowledge.
So my ultimate question here was, if that word is there, it is there, right?
Well, it's meant,
Melee.
hey, it's pronounced malah, malaha, perhaps. But what does it mean?
Okay.
It says
What does it mean? And if
malaha belashoni, huh?
it means like what we've been talking about, it means, then how does that fit in there? I mean, with the interpretation of the verse.
So the word lashon means different variant, and it also, the word shon or shana means red, and it means to, like, teeth biting, and it's a picture of a conflict. But the word lashon is translated tongue, and it's different or variant. So there's no variant what. So this says ki ein milah belashoni. So it says, behold, thus, when, what, that's the word kaf yod, and then ein means without, or we get the word ain't, which means it doesn't exist. Malah, word or speech, which has been, bet is the prefix that means in the condition of, lashon, meaning different variant, but it also, balash, can be the root word that means search, examine, investigate, or be a detective. And then Vav Nun is the one that's doing that. It's like, go ahead and search out all the different languages, all the bifurcations, all the conflict between languages, which Isaac Moses' son, just to give a plug for him, the book of, yeah, that's verse 4, the book Origin of Speeches, and it also has one called The Word, showing 20,000 English words that came out of Hebrew. Isaac Moses' son has looked at a couple hundred different languages. The guy's brilliant. The guy's a wonderful guy. He has a great blog. He's a funny guy, a humorist. Look at Isaac Moses' stuff, Mozeson, but he doesn't like the paleo. But I'm just saying, he's a Jewish guy, so he doesn't even acknowledge Yeshua, as far as I know. But I'm just saying that you could look at all this stuff and keep finding it. And that's what this is saying. There's no language that hasn't been so frayed or so bifurcated or so frazzled with use, but it still holds the knowledge of Yahweh, because he designed language to be a container. Kala. And I'm saying the word bride, container, also is a place of economic provision and nutrition. Functionally, words, language functionally imprisons essence. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying that verse is saying. Okay, so let me proceed then. Verse 130, Psalms 139, verse 8. Now we're up to the letter Kaf, which is the open hand. And it says, if I, now the word is Aleph Samic Kuf, grab hold, heat up, conclude, infer, deduce, interpret, or translate, all of which we're doing. And here's hand, and it's, as a suffix is you, as a prefix it means like, Kaf Yod, it's like here by my hand. So now we're doing this. We're grabbing a hold, we're heating it up, concluding, inferring, deducing, interpreting, and translating. Now, if I put a different prefix and a different suffix, let me look at mem, samic, kuf, hey. By using the red dictionary, Klein's dictionary, I'm just sitting here looking at every possible permutation. So I have a list of prefixes, a list of suffixes, and I'm just plugging stuff in, and I'm just the scientist experimenting. What was it? Thomas Edison had over 1,000, or was it 10,000 failed experiments with the light bulb before he finally figured out how to make it? It's just scientific experimentation. Well, the word mem samik kuf he means fire room or stoke hold. It's a furnace where you're just taking stuff and throwing it in to get the fire burning. So if I look at mem samik kuf, it means to harvest olives, and samik kuf is the word for sack. A sack, like a bag. When you harvest olives, you put them in a bag. So we're just, what's in a stoke hold or a fire room? You go out into the woods, you get branches, you cut them up, you throw them down into the basement, and then you open up the furnace door and you throw them in one at a time to get the fire going. But this verse is, if I sever the heavens, there you are. So on the heels of this other previous verse, what if I become a groan for you? What if I dishearten your ruach and provoke your face to flee from regarding me, from finding pleasure in my presence? It's like, what if we get him so disgusted with us that he just turns and leaves? And then right here in the letter Kaf, which is this open hand, he's saying, if I look up into the stars, there you are. So Sarah Perry, and I see that she happens to be here. She has a logo, Sperry Spot, that like a DNA helix, that she's done this whole study of the heavens. If I look into the heavens, there you are. It's like the whole sky is a bag of olives that have been harvested, or a bunch of letters that if I put them in a certain arrangement, there you are. They're just right there. I just have to be able to see, how do I do this? The other interesting thing is that Samik and Kaf, Samik is an engineered structure in, Samik Kuf, excuse me, SQ, SAC, Masak. Then I'm getting all this out of Aleph Samik Kuf, because Aleph means I will, and Samik Kuf is a sack, or Mem Masak, Mem Samik Kuf, to harvest olives. It's a stoke. So it's all these pictures. How do we find pictures of what it's saying? Getting pieces of wood to throw into the fire to heat things up, getting a bag of olives that you harvest that you then can process to eat. What I'm saying is that when you read these Hebrew, this sentence plays off these other sentences. They're all pictures and stories. Kuf happens to be like a mushroom shape, like this dome, like this big top. And so it almost plays into the flat earthers. By golly, why would that happen to be? I don't know. It just happens to be there. I'm not a proponent of flat earth necessarily, but boy, there's sure some pictures that sure look like flat earth, just for what it's worth. Like this dome over as an engineered dome. To notice pictures and to realize other people are finding stories that they feel plausible is because it's also in the pictures. Is just being a scientist looking at the evidence. To conclude or determine is another step, but you have to at least be able to look at the pictures without going, that's offensive. Look at the pictures. Just look at what he's got here for us. So here, that's Lamed, or that's Kaf. The next letter is the Lamed. So this is the word that says, and if I stoop or bend down to hell or Sheol, behold, you're there. It's just three words. Vav, Aleph, Zadi, Yod, Ayin, Hey, Shin, Aleph, Vav, Lamed, Hey, Nun, Kaf. Why does this line up with the Lamed? He says, if I look to the heavens, there, I can see you up there. But if I look down to Sheol, where's Sheol? Well, here's the point. The word Zadi Yod Ayin, or Zadi Ayin Hey, means stoop, incline, or to tip something out to empty it. The Kuf is a circle with a line, and it's like the mouth of a bucket that pours out gravel, or a jar that pours out water. There's the circle and the line. So on the Erichtology chart back in 2010, one of the things you'll see is there's a picture of this circle with a line, which is like somebody going through a tunnel, like a surfer in a wave or a plane through the clouds. There's these picture types that you have to be able to see in here. So for him to say, what if I turn something and empty it out? So he's saying here, if I were to peer into a void, he's looking up into the heavens and saying, gosh, it's full like an orchard. of olives and I need to harvest a bag, and I look at it and there you are. If I determine why the stars are laid out the way they are, you're there. But if I look into the opposite, which is the void, like Sheol, which is, we think of, oh, that's like hell or the place of the grave or the pit or the great emptiness. But the word Sheol comes from Shin Aleph Vav Lamed. If I look at Shin Aleph Lamed, it means borrow or ask for or entreat or interrogate. But it also means to borrow words from another language. So why would I take the word Sheol, which we think of as hell or the grave, and say it has anything to do with borrowing words from another language? Because in Hebrew, it's a related word. So he's saying, even if I tip out, if I empty my consciousness of Hebrew, if I look at words from another language, and then the word hey nun kaf, kaf suffix means you, hey nun is the root of the word hey nun hey Hannah, which means behold here. And it's like, even if I look into the emptiness, if I look into the sky, if I look into the emptiness of a deep void, behold, gladly, you're here. Even if I borrow words from another language, you're here. If I were to peer into a void of emptiness, which is tohu vebohu, why does this place exist? How does this work? It's all in the words. The word yod zadi ayin, just to add another layer of consideration, this is the word aleph zadi yod ayin hey. It starts with the vav. Vav aleph zadi yod ayin hey. And I'm going to look at yod zadi ayin because that's the way the language works. And it means make a bed, lay out a background, expound, which is what we're doing. It means unfold and arrange, spread out. It's a gallery, like a museum, like an art gallery. It means a balcony or to project a hypothesis. Push the limits of logic and reason, which is exactly what we're doing. And what I'm saying is, I'm looking at this verse. It lines up with Lamed, which is a shepherd staff, which is an authority, which means teach and learn. And it has to do exactly with saying, if I look at the stars, which is to say, he designed it just this way. But if I look into the depth of the void of human logic, human reason, which looks like a dark void with nothing in it, as I push it, because human essence was designed and fit to grapple with language, he's still there, and the truth is still there, and there's no escaping it. And the only people that can't see this stuff is the people that refuse to see it with their eyes closed. I don't see it. And I say that because Carl Baugh said this one time. They were out in Texas somewhere looking at a place where there was some dinosaur footprints. There was this three-toed giant reptile, and in the middle of it was a human footprint, obviously made the same day when the soil was wet, when it was mud, and now it's a petrified rock. And they were finding it, and there was some, I guess, call it a secular journalist there that was going to document everything. He had his back turned, wouldn't look at it, and says, I don't see anything. These guys must be making it all up. It's like, turn around and look. Nope, I don't see anything. It's like, okay, you want to play that game? Goodbye. This says, push the limits of logic and reason, look into the deep void, the background of nothingness, adopting words from another language, and you'll find Yahweh's truth in the language, in the words he told us to teach and learn, Lamed. Verse 9, lining up then with the letter Mem. Aleph, Shin, Aleph. I will lift up. Kaf, Nun, Pe, Yod. Kanafi, my wing. Shin, Chet, Resh. Shachar means search diligently, spy. It's the word for blackness, dawn, or blackbird. Interestingly enough, my dad worked on designing the wings of an airplane, the SR-71 made by Lockheed, called the Blackbird. It was a spy plane used all during the 70s and 80s. And here, if I lift up this incredible delta-winged Blackbird spy plane, it went faster than Mach 3 times the speed of sound, and went higher than 90,000 feet in elevation. The pilots would have to wear spacesuits so that they could handle the thin atmosphere. Why am I saying that? Because that's the words here. If I lift up my wing as a blackbird spy plane and search, that plane went higher and faster. And that same word, shachar, means shed light or meaning or elucidation. It's like, even if that was the greatest plane ever built by humanity to be piloted. It was a reconnaissance plane. They used it, a variation for war, as a fighter, but it was a YF-12A. But it's a recon plane, SR recon. It had to do with use all the technology available, every bit of everything that humans have at their disposal, and even in their capacity of the extreme. What will I find? Aleph, Shin, Kaf, Nun, Hey. Well, Kaf, Nun, Hey, Kana, means certainly. Shekinah, Shin, Kaf, Nun, Hey, means dwell, habitation. That's where we get the word Mishkan, Sheken, establish as a habitation. It's also like a pond of tadpoles, a silo, a house of seed, a post office, a lair of messengers, a garrison of angels. What I'm saying is that I can see this habitation of messengers. Why is the word Aleph, Shin, Kaf, the word testicle? What? A habitation of tadpoles, a pond of tadpoles, a garrison of messengers? Aleph, Shin is the word fire. Great balls of fire. What's he talking about here? Yeah, where's that come from? That phrase, it's right here. And then Bet Aleph, Chet Resh Yod Tav, and then the last word is Yod Mem. Last word of verse 9, the sea, the ocean, the water. But the word Bet Aleph, Chet Resh Yod Tav. Well, Aleph, Chet Resh, Achar means future or otherwise, remnant, the hinder part, the party responsible for as a guarantor of warranty. Bet Aleph means arrive, and Chet Resh Yod Tav, see, the thing is, I could say arriving in the future ocean or sea. Yod Mem is sea. It's like, what? This doesn't make any sense. What is the pond of tadpoles, a dwelling? If I lift up my wing to search diligently, what does it say? I find. It doesn't say find. If I search diligently, there's a habitation of the future water. But the word Chet Resh Yod Tav, charit. Chet Resh Tav means a plowman. So here, plowman, well, that's like lines or furrows. Hey, that's just like the letter Kaf that we were just looking at, saying if we're severing the heavens or we're looking at the inscriptions or somehow this thing is covered. And I'm trying to show you there's all this mulling of this words. Our processing of this is almost like a melee. Chet Resh Yod Tav also means inscription, carving, and engraving, or you could say as written. So I can put this all together and say, when sometime in the future they actually learn how to build an airplane and fly up as high as they possibly can, or they actually figure out how to accomplish, what's Yod Mem? Hey Mem means they. Hey Mem, hey means coveted or desired. But it also means roared, cooed, moaned, or growled. So Yod means he will put his hand to, and Mem is, remember, it's this, as Sally was saying, is this place where you take the words within you in order to be pregnant with Yahuwah's words so that you produce something. Mem has to do with a personal craving. Even when we have ultimate technology to make this reconnaissance hardware that flies up into the sky, we'll see that what he wrote is true. No scientific human technological progress will find anything contrary that's true to what Yahweh already wrote. That's what I see, and that's the letter Mem. Then I get to the letter Nun, which is verse 10, Gam Shem, what's more, here placed Yod Dalet Kaf, your hand, Tav Nun Het Nun Yod. That word chen is where you get the word grace, or cheneni, but nach is where you get the word come in to a landing, where you get the word Noah, Noach. Blend of words, Tav Nun Het Nun Yod. And then Vav Tav Aleph Het Zion Nun Yod. Aleph Het Zion means to seize, bolt, hold fast. We'll get back to more of that in a second. Then Yod Mem Yod Nun Kaf. Yemen, like this, like the country of Yemen. If you're facing east with Jerusalem in front of you, Yemen is to the right, which is the south, and the west is the ocean behind you. So they'll say that the west is the sea, and to the north is the left hand. So that's why Yemen is right hand. So Benjamin means son of my right hand. I'm just saying that's why the country is named Yemen. It's Hebrew. So I could say, what's more, Shem, here, there, placed, name, your hand, or what's more placed here by your hand than the word Tav Nun Het Nun Yod. Het Nun is aimed at, or inclined toward, or leading me on by your grace, set at ease, Tav Nun Het, or extinguish, to set at ease. This is by your hand, placing, and then Vav Tav Aleph Het Zion is to bolt or to seize fast. It's also Het Zion Nun is a cantor or a superintendent, the one in charge of leading like leading this discussion or leading the reading of the Torah. And then Mem Yod Nun. So Sally mentioned before about if you recognize the words with Mem Nun or Mem Yod Nun, min or manna. Where's this from? But Mem Yod Nun means to classify, fabricate, invent, or sort, which is a synonym with Ayin Resh Kaf, Eric as in Erictology. Pei Nun also, which is the word for face, which is a sort or kind. So I could say your own hand is provoking me to grasp your hand, your manna, which is the only provision of sanity. And that reminds me of the song in the Aleph-Bet song that we, Yod your hand, because Yod is your hand, who formed my hand. Your mouth formed my mouth. Your mind formed my mind. Your heart formed my heart to be in sync with you. Yod is your hand who formed my hand to hold on to your kaf, which is the other word for hand. It's all a play on words, which is Torah, Torah, Torah. So here I'm looking at the letter Nun and realizing right here it's validating that phrase of the Aleph-Bet song where it's your own hand. Yahweh, you have grasped our hand and holding on to ours. Nun is this action of engagement to comprehend these matters, to grasp as an estate. Aleph, Het, Zion. Then Nun Yod is the suffix and Vav Tav is the prefix. Grasp a hold like two hands gripping this fabrication, this thing that he's made, this manna. Yod Mem Yod Nun, Mini, Yemen, your Yemen. You have provided this food for us. This is the banquet. This is the feast that he's talking about way back in the very beginning. Verse 6, how can I eat this all? Next letter would be Samik. This is now verse 11. Vav Aleph Mem Resh. Well, Aleph Mem Resh means to speak or say or declare, but Aleph means I will, and Vav is a connector, so it can mean if. Mem Resh is to be bitter. What if I am bitter and I Aleph Kaf only, like Ak Sameach, only rejoice. Aleph Kaf means only. Then the word Chosek, Het Shin Kaf, means darkness, ignorance, illiterate, and blindness. So what if I declare in my bitterness, hey, I'm minimal, I'm fallible, I'm human, I'm dark, ignorant, illiterate, blind, I can't do this, I can't do this. Hey, sounds just like the way they translated Psalms 139:6. What if we say this, I can't do this? Yod Shin Vav Pei Nun Yod. Well, Shuf Shin Vav Pei Shin Pei He is the word Shapha, so it's a related word to language. Shin Pei He. So I'm saying if I know that Nun is the suffix and this is Shin Vav Pei, it's very close to the same essence from the root. And then Yod Shin is the word is or reality or possession. So I could say, and it ends with a Yod, so it means my possession. And this word means from within the text is Pei Nun Yod. But it means rub, smooth, and polish is the word shuf, shin, vav, pei, which is the word to become sane or to clarify, which is the lip, language, or tongue. And then it says vav, lila, night, which is turning, or which is light, and then bet, ayin, dalet, nun, yod, which is where we get the word Eden. But bet ayin means to bubble up. Bet ayin dalet means to be for the benefit of, or to be far away or sent from a faraway place in time. So I could say, wait a minute, even if I were to claim that I can't do this, it's beyond me, I'm too ignorant, I never learned, I was never schooled, it's not mine, it's a different culture, I'm Cossack, I'm dark ignorant. Then the other interesting thing is that the word Shin Pei Nun, Yod, means rabbit-like. Rabbit-like? What's a dang rabbit got to do with this? Yod, Shin, Vav, Pei, Nun, Yod. Well, rabbit is Shin, Pei, Nun, but rabbit is also Aleph, Resh, Nun, Bet. So depending on which word you use for rabbit, this is like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, a magician trick. Turning from within the text, night turns into light, and bubbling up like the Garden of Eden from a long time ago, out comes all the provisions of our luxury. That's the letter Samech, which is a picture of the menorah, which is the light in the hidden place. The menorah in the Kadosh place. The Kadosh place is his language. He has an illumination like pulling a rabbit out of a hat. A secret. It's just astounding stuff. That's the Samech. Then it drops into the letter Ayin, which is verse 12. Now it's kind of almost like, some of the letters are lining up with verses. So we have Gam Hosek, which is Gam, which is heaped up, or even more, which is like, what if it's like really ignorant, really dark? Lo Yahoshika, what? Hosek, Het, Shin, Kaf. But Yod, Het, Shin, Yod, Kaf doesn't just mean dark, it means void or lacking. Held back, cease, refrain, prevented. So what this is saying is, even if it's really dark, what if it's really, really about ignorance and blindness and illiteracy? He's saying it's not really that you're ignorant, it's been refrained or held back. Exactly what Kurt was saying ago. Yahweh kept this and refrained. He made it cease. He prevented it from you. Mem, mem, kaf. And Lila, lamed, yod, lamed, hey, the dark night, like yom, kaf, yod, vav, mem. Here's this other last three words of this verse 12. Remember, this is lining up with the ayin, which is scales of balance, or like the table of showbread. Ayin, which means to see, to be able to balance exactly, weigh carefully, to really get it and put it in. Oh, I see the way it all fits together. The word kaf, ayin, yod, resh. Well, ayin, vav, resh is light, but ayin, yod, resh means to illustrate. To illustrate like an artist, like maybe drawing pictures of Paleo-Hebrew letters, illustrations. It means to, like Het, Shin, Yod, Kaf, Hey. Well, that was the word darkness or obscurity. But when you spell it, and this is why the interesting thing about looking at how to spell the words, if you look up the word Kaf, Het, Shin, in which case Yod, Kaf, Hey would be the suffix, it means he estranged himself, cringed, false, lean, lie, disappoint, deceive, or deny. Well, that goes right back to what we were looking at in verse with the letter for the Yod, which was, what is that? Verse 7, Gee, what if I provoke you and dishearten your ruach so that you withdraw from regarding me? Well, that's what Yahweh said Israel did to him. And so Yahweh said, I'm just going to leave. I'm going to kick you out and I'm going to leave. And I'll wait until you guys come looking for me, which we're doing now. But this is exactly playing into this verse. And he says, it's not that there's nothing there. It's that it was hidden in darkness and obscurity. And I estranged myself because you guys are a bunch of false liars. You guys said you'd love me and do everything I said, but you didn't. So I left. And that's why the words have looked empty all these years. And then the last word, kaf, aleph, vav, resh, hey, like light. Kaf means like as a prefix. Hey is an expression to reveal. And this word kaora means enlightenment, shiny, or ventilation, which is to give air, to open something up that's been dark all these years, let air into the room and refresh it. But interestingly enough, the word kaf, aleph, vav, resh means ugly, unseemly, or made to be ugly, or a reproach. So you could say this very thing. That's why guys like Isaac Moseson, Michael Brown, Michael Heiser, Miles Jones, everybody thinks this paleo is a bunch of crap, to use James Ralph's Canadian adjective. Yahweh made it that way on purpose. So it's Daniel, hide the word and seal the book for 2,730 years or 2,500 years. Okay, there it is. Hide the word and seal the book till the time of the end. He's retained it. It's right there in verse 12. In the eye and scales of balance. Why, when people looked at this, do they put in the scales of balance and find it lacking, find it void, find it nothing, find it ugly and unseemly? Because Yahweh had to sustain it until now for us to come back to it. Verse 13, for so you, ki atah, then here's this word, kuf nun yod tav. Well, kuf nun is the word for nest, like a bird's nest. Kuf nun hey, Yahweh claims to be kana shemayim ve'eretz, maker, thus the possessor. Kuf nun hey, so to own something, to possess it, you're the one that gets to sit in a nest. Kuf nun, to nestle, to snuggle into someplace real cozy like. It's to become the owner, the creator, or to buy, to purchase something, B-U-Y, is scales of balance, which means to acquire. And then kaf, lamed, yod, tav, yod. Well, that's kaliti, that's similar to the word for bride, which is the one who then is possessed. You want to acquire the status of kadoshi layawa, is to be kadoshi. I am his kadoshi. I am existing, hava. I exist as, in reality, the kadoshi of Yahweh, his betrothed. But the word kaf lamed yod tav also means functional, instrumental. It's the word for mind, which is a utensil or an organ of comprehension. So to go back and say, speaking spirits, humans are designed to be all about linguistics and words. The next word, tav samek kaf nun yod, ta sakani. Well, samek kaf nun is very similar to shin kaf nun, where you get the word for sukkah. Samek kaf nun means screen, cover, or entangled, like branches woven together, or interlaced fingers. And sukkah, samek kaf hey means to listen. So to be exposed to danger, to be of samek kaf nun, to be of benefit or useful, goes back to the benefit or usefulness in verse 11, which is bet ayin dalet nun yod, where we get the word for Eden. Then the next word is a bet tet nun. Well, bet tet nun, button, is the word for like belly button, and it means literally belly, womb, pregnant, or lining. And then afterward, aleph mem yod means mother, m, or my mother. My mother's pregnant belly button? What? Go back to the beginning here. This lining up with the pay, which lines up to the beatitude, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see Elohim. And here I'm saying if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. Going back to that algebraic formula, if I know that the letter pay lines up with the altar of incense, lines up with that beatitude, then I can grab that beatitude and plug it back here into Psalms 139, verse 13. I'm trying to show you the method of indexing with this overlay which is one functional mechanism of deciphering all this stuff, to answer Randall's question. And so what I get, if you would acquire a similar mind as a screen from danger, become pregnant, be my mother. What? Be my mother? Mean like the Virgin Mary? Take the Father's open, pay like the mouth, with a pure heart, open to receive the Father's seed. See, when it says my mother, Aleph Mem Yod, it doesn't mean my, it doesn't mean the speaker. It means sometimes the Yod prefix is, or the Yod suffix meaning my, is speaking about the word itself. And you have to be able to dislocate or reshuffle the use of all these letters, which you can only get from the experience of looking at the way words have been translated, looking at Stone's Tanakh or JPS or anybody else who wants to translate directly from Hebrew to English and see how they did it and realize it might be close, maybe not perfect, but there's a lot of good stuff they found, which is the one reason I do recommend Stone's Art Scroll Tanakh. It's a great book, even though I don't necessarily trust the English translation. So here, the word button, bet, tet, noon. Bet is a gateway or an entrance, like Babel, the entrance of bet, lamed, nothingness or confusion. But here, bet, tet, noon. Hey, bet, tet is the word aspect. Hey, bet, tet, aleph, hey means utterance or pronouncing. Hey, bet, yod, tet, derivatives of the spelling of the word, means natural habitat or dwelling. So the natural habitat for dwelling and growing of a seed is in the womb of the mother. Hey, bet yod tet means look at. Look at the utterance of pronouncing. That's spelling letters. Drawn as illustrations is Paleo-Hebrew. So here, word by word, this is just going down the alphabet list, fit to the overlay, validating this entire study as I see it, which is why I think this is such a great chapter for doing this. Verse 14. Odeka, Aleph Vav Dalet Kaf. Well, Aleph Vav Dalet is AUD, which is audio. Your voice. Well, like we talked about in the first Ashri Afata Achliaz Odeka et Kokika, the first 8 words of Psalm 119, at your voice, yoked to Kaf Yod, but Kaf Yod is a burning branding. It means like myself. When your voice is yoked to mine, we need to break after 14. This is 14. We'll make a break. We're on the letter Zadi, just so you know. Picture this. This is the letter Zadi correlated to verse 14. And he says, when your voice is yoked, Ayin Lamed, like myself, his mind, his heart, his words are synchronized, conforming to the pattern of the Mishkan, understanding how is Yahusha or Yeshua, how is he fit to these letters? When we get it, when we see it, when we can see that this whole thing is a map of the kingdom of heaven engaging the kingdom of Israel on the face of the earth. It's a map of eschatology. It's a map of human history. It's written in the stars. It's written in the deepest depth of the void of the darkness, what looks like nothingness of human logic and reason. And it's all there. It's all locked in according to these letters. The next word is noraut, nun vav resh aleph vav tav. Well, aleph vav tav, well, vav tav is the suffix, but aleph vav tav is a letter of the alphabet. Resh aleph means to put on exhibition, to see it, allow to perceive. Nun vav resh, aleph means norah, which is terrible and fearsome. It's incredible, illuminating, awesome exhibition. To be able to see this as Yahuwah's own treasure that he's hidden all these years for us to suddenly see. Gosh, and it's a map of our own string of molecules by which humanity, by which even nuts and bolts and rocks and leaves are composed. And then the word Peleiti Nephalaim, that's paleo, mem, ayin, shin, yod, kaf, that from which your punctilious, pragmatic actions, deeds, work of production, my soul is constantly craving. Nefashi, yod, dalet, ayin, tav, yadat, madly, mem aleph dalet. When you see this, and my soul craves, paleo, nun pe lamed, yod tav yod. Well, lamed yod tav is where we get litho, like lithography, Paleolithic. Litho is stone. It's written on stone. Lathrios is stealthy, going back to the spy plane thing. Lethargos is forgetful. Latere, latent, hidden. These are words I found in the dictionary. It's like it's written on stone. It was used to hide stuff. And it's stealthy, like even a spy plane going up isn't going to find anything different than what he wrote on the original pieces of stone in the Paleo Hebrew. And then the word nun pe lamed aleph yod mem means panic, threaten, or frighten. Lamed aleph mem means people or nation. Aleph yod means where, what? The people that were lost became nothing. Well, that's talking about the lost 10 tribes of Israel. When they come back to this stuff, and as Stu Pittersall down there in California was saying, there's a verse where Yahweh says he's going to put a fear and a terror of us because of him, because of Yahuwah, in our enemies. Though they don't want us to see it, when the 10 spies went into, not the 10, but those other spies, that was a different time, when they went into Jericho and Rahab said, gosh, what happened to you guys? We were petrified. Our baddest warriors were crippled with fear, and you guys you just left. You turned away and left. What the heck happened? That was 40 years ago. Israel became afraid when they saw the bad guys, their enemies, but yet the bad guys had a greater fear in them, and Israel couldn't see it. Yahweh said, go like I'm with you, and believe it. And then it says here, mem ayin shin yod kaf, your deeds, my soul wants to experience madly. It's in the Paleo. It's right here in the Paleo. Incredible, terrible, fearsome, and he's going to fill our adversaries with a greater fear. Again, scales of balance. Remember, this is the Zadi, this is the sprout, and it comes right out of the ayin, paying Zadi, ayin. What we put in the scales of balance, if we put in our scales of balance this incredible regard of his stuff, then what opens and sprouts is that our enemies are filled with a terrible fear, and we get to illuminate. It's like when you read the alphabetic letter sequence, overlaid with these positions of these words, the whole thing explodes with a vision of the future that nobody has ever expressed, that I've ever heard in my whole life of going to church or university or any encyclopedia, any scientist. I've never heard anybody say these words. Anyway, we're at the end here of this one.